They threatened me and said, if you keep gaining weight, we're going to have to start writing fat jokes.
There's a little-known secret Queen Latifah. The legendary star of Living Single once swore there was one episode she would never watch again. What could possibly make Queen Latifah, a woman bold enough to stand toe-to-toe with Hollywood itself, turn away? A line of dialogue seemingly harmless turned into a knife of body shaming that cracked the cast from within. Kim Coles broke down in silence. Queen Latifah exploded right there on set. That night, Living Single stopped being just a sitcom. It became a battlefield where honor and respect were put to the test. And that very episode became a haunting shadow. Queen Latifah vowed never to revisit. In the early 1990s, American television was starving for something fresh. Then Living Single arrived like a storm. A story about four young black women, independent, sharp, and full of life, sharing an apartment in Brooklyn. No longer side characters meant to decorate someone else's story. They were the center of it all, with dreams, love careers, and everyday mistakes. For the first time, Black audiences saw their own reflections on screen, authentic, funny, and full of pride. Living Single quickly became a phenomenon. Every night, millions tuned in to watch Khadijah James, played by Queen Latifah, bounce off Sinclair Maxine and Regine. But while the ratings were strong and the audience passionate, a bitter paradox emerged. Fox never truly promoted the series. Just 1 year after Living Single premiered, NBC launched Friends. With the same concept, a group of 20-somethings sharing life together. Friends was immediately pushed as the crown jewel of American TV. Billboards, posters, glossy magazine covers, all plastered with smiling, polished white faces. Meanwhile, Living Single was still there, still loved, but always treated as second class. Erica Alexander, who played Maxine Shaw, once admitted bitterly, "We knew they took the format from us, just changed the color of the skin. And they got called legends." That favoritism wasn't just a PR issue. It created a quiet, gnawing pressure within the cast itself. To know you paved the way, only to watch someone else steal the spotlight, was like holding a flame inside, always ready to erupt. On set, every episode became a mental battlefield. The cast had to deliver laughs for the audience while carrying the burning question inside: why aren't we respected like them? And in that tense atmosphere, one episode was born, an episode that seemed harmless, but cut the cast even deeper. It would go down as the one Queen Latifah could never bring herself to watch again. But while the whole cast was fighting Hollywood's unfairness together, Queen Latifah carried a separate burden. If the favoritism toward Friends was the collective wound, Latifah's heart carried a darker, more private scar she could never fully share. Queen Latifah. The spotlight and the private pain. Queen Latifah walked onto the set of Living Single with the aura of a young star at her peak. She was the first female rapper to win a Grammy, the face of hip-hop feminism. And now she stepped into the role of Khadijah James, the sharp and witty editor-in-chief of Flavor magazine. To audiences, Latifah was the model of a modern black woman who did not have to conform to any standard, yet still shone. Few people knew that behind that smile was a wound that had not yet healed. The 1992 shock. The death of her brother. Before Living Single premiered, Latifah lost the person closest to her, her brother Lancelot Owens Jr., a police officer. In March 1992, he died in a horrific motorcycle accident. The motorcycle had been a gift from Latifah herself. The shock shattered her world with guilt, pain, and torment. In later interviews, Latifah admitted, "I felt like a piece of my body had been torn away." From then on, she went out every day wearing her brother's motorcycle key on a chain around her neck, part keepsake and part burden. Pain hidden behind laughter. The Living Single set became the place where Latifah had to hide her grief while pushing herself to perform. To viewers, Khadijah James was quick on her feet, cheerful and independent. Inside, every line and every laugh had to push through an invisible wall of sorrow. Colleagues recalled that sometimes after loud studio scenes, Latifah would sit quietly backstage, turning the key in her fingers, her eyes red. On some days, Kim Coles and Erica Alexander would deliberately clown around and tell silly stories just to pull her out of the darkness. They said, "We became family, not just on screen, but in real life, because Latifah needed us, and we needed her." Mounting pressure, injustice, and prejudice. Before the pain of her brother's death had eased, Latifah had to face another battle body image bias. Hollywood in the 1990s was harsh on actresses, especially black women. The pressure to be thin and beautiful crept into scripts. So when lines that mocked weight showed up on set, they were not just jokes to Latifah. They felt like a blatant betrayal. In that context, Latifah became a live wire. On one side was grief that had not healed. On another side was the unfairness of the spotlight being split with friends. Above all, was the responsibility to protect her castmates and protect the spirit of the show. As if fate wanted to test Queen Latifah's patience further, the worst thing happened in the very place that should have been her safe home, the living single set. The big drama, body-shaming fat jokes, and the haunting episode. In sitcoms, jokes are supposed to make audiences laugh. Sometimes instead of laughter, they become a knife straight into an actor's heart. That is exactly what happened on Living Single, leaving scars that remain to this day. Everything exploded in Crappy Birthday from Season 2, Episode 12 in 1994. The episode opens with a light mood. The friends decide to take a surprise road trip to Atlantic City to celebrate Khadijah James's birthday, the character played by Queen Latifah. In the car, Khadijah is blindfolded and squeezed into the back seat surrounded by towering luggage. The setup is meant to be fun, an enthusiastic group of friends, a bulky car, and a surprise birthday plan. Then someone suddenly comments that the car is slow and sluggish because it is too heavy. It is the familiar kind of sitcom humor that compares everyday situations for laughs. Still blindfolded, Khadijah fires back, "You better not be looking at me." That is the moment the atmosphere on set changed. On screen, viewers might have laughed it off as self-deprecation. To the cast, especially Kim Coles, who had been pressured many times to lose weight, the line was no longer funny. It became an arrow aimed straight at a personal insecurity. For Kim Coles, that day became unforgettable, because under the laughter, she heard a fat joke aimed directly at her appearance. Erica Alexander, who played Maxine Shaw, later confirmed on a podcast, "Yes, that was definitely a fat joke." That line exposed a painful reality. The team was using women's bodies as a comedic device, regardless of the psychological wounds it left on the people involved. Kim Coles, from hurt to outrage. Kim Coles later said, "I'm surprised we let that line go through." To her, it felt like a punch to insecurities that had built up over many years. She revealed that at the beginning of each season, her management would receive a call that said, "Kim Coles has to lose weight. She has to lose weight. She has to lose weight." The threat was blunt. If she did not slim down, fat jokes would be inserted into the scripts. Coles said she panicked so much that she told friends about it, and all she got back were half-joking reassurances like, "No man in America is kicking you out of bed over a few extra pounds." Coles understood that her friends meant to comfort her. What hurt most was not what friends said. It was the fact that the men in suits in the office were turning her body into a bargaining chip. Queen Latifah, the woman who shut down the cruel joke. Fortunately, Kim Coles was not alone. Erica Alexander recalled that several fat jokes had made it into early drafts of the scripts, but then they suddenly disappeared. Why? Because Queen Latifah stood up, looked the issue straight in the eye, and declared, "We're not going to be doing that." That moment proved that Latifah was not just the lead actress, she was the spiritual leader of the entire cast. She was willing to confront producers, writers, and the people in power to protect her co-stars. Her words carried the weight of a command. From then on, there was no room for cheap laughs at the expense of someone's body. And after that day, fat jokes nearly vanished from Living Single. But because of this, the Crappy Birthday episode became an especially painful milestone. It revealed the insensitivity of the creative team, while also being the moment Queen Latifah was forced to turn her anger into action to protect her friends. Silent pressure, when actresses had to police themselves. Even though Latifah defended her castmates, the veiled threats continued. On the Reliving Single podcast in 2025, Kim Coles revealed that every season she still received messages from the producers. They threatened that if I kept gaining weight, they would start writing fat jokes. I told Erica, and she said, "I'm not going to read those lines." It was the clearest proof of a toxic environment. On one side, the cast stood together in solidarity. On the other, the people in charge still wielded power like a hammer, pressing down in subtle but ruthless ways. Coles admitted that during the entire run of the show, she lived with the constant feeling of being watched. She forced herself to diet to maintain the image that the men in suits demanded, just so she wouldn't become the butt of the jokes again. The irony was brutal. Even though Latifah had successfully shut down the cruel jokes that one episode became a memory, no one wanted to revisit. For Kim Coles, it was the day she felt the smallest and most powerless in her entire career. For Erica Alexander, it was proof that Hollywood never truly respected black women or diverse body types. And for Queen Latifah, it was the sorrow of seeing her team wounded, right in front of her, something that made her never want to watch that episode again. Why was this so shocking? Placed in the context of the 1990s, the drama becomes even heavier. This was an era when American television was deeply prejudiced about body image. Beautiful meant thin and polished. A black-led show like Living Single was already getting minimal support from Fox. To add fat jokes on top of that was like shooting themselves in the foot. And more importantly, it happened while Latifah was still grieving the loss of her brother. All of it piled together, turning what should have been a fun sitcom into a set filled with pressure and tears. The aftermath. After the incident, the Living Single team changed. They no longer dared to insert fat jokes, at least not openly. The female cast members grew closer, protecting each other more fiercely. But for Queen Latifah, the wound left a permanent mark. Whenever she thought back to Crappy Birthday, all she felt was pain. Maybe that's why for years she rarely spoke about that episode. To the audience, it was just one of 118 episodes of a beloved sitcom. But to Latifah, it was the one episode she never wanted to look at again. After the blow-up over Crappy Birthday, the atmosphere on set was never quite the same. Queen Latifah had stepped up to defend her colleagues, but from that moment on, a quiet question lingered in the background. Was her influence becoming too great? Because in real life, Latifah was a Grammy-winning superstar, the big sister everyone in the cast admired. On screen, Khadijah James was the soul of the Brooklyn crew, and that very dynamic unintentionally sparked an underground drama, the feeling that the spotlight was never evenly shared. The silent rift over spotlight and characters. From the very beginning, Khadijah James was written as the heart of the show. Her apartment was the central setting. Her magazine Flavor was the link between the characters, and Queen Latifah herself was already a Grammy-winning superstar. It was no surprise that both the crew and the audience saw Khadijah as the anchor that kept the story grounded. But that very central privilege quietly stirred frustration among the rest of the cast. Rumors say that during script meetings, some actors spoke up directly. Their characters needed more screen time, more depth, rather than everything orbiting around Khadijah. Erica Alexander has publicly admitted that Maxine Shaw, the sharp and brilliant lawyer, had all the potential to become iconic, but was often boxed into the role of the witty friend. Behind the scenes, whispers spread that Alexander pushed writers to expand her character, even sparking moments of unusual tension in meetings. Kim Coles felt the same struggle. Her character, Sinclair Freeman, was sweet, naive, and clumsy, always the source of comic relief. Fans adored her innocence, but Coles often felt trapped. Already under pressure about her body image being pigeonholed as the lovable clown only deepened her frustration. Some backstage discussions spiraled into heavy air as she asked, how could Sinclair be more than just a joke? How could she be given real depth? Even Kim Fields, who was already famous from The Facts of Life, was caught in the undertow. Her character, Regine Hunter, the stylish, sharp-tongued diva, was fun and flashy. But Fields was reportedly unhappy that Regine was often written one-dimensional, lacking true emotional arcs. Behind the witty one-liners, Regine was rarely given a spotlight episode the way Khadijah was, and at the center of it all stood Queen Latifah. She was both the respected big sister and the focal point of suspicion. Off-screen, she was always the face of Living Single in the media. On screen, Khadijah was consistently positioned at the core of the group. For some colleagues, the Latifah brand unintentionally swallowed the ensemble spirit that the show had originally promised. Of course, no one in the cast ever publicly opposed Latifah. There was no explosive scandal, no walk-offs. But the hallway whispers, the furrowed brows in meetings, and the quiet feeling of being just a satellite remained. It wasn't enough to destroy friendships. but it was enough to create an undercurrent of drama. Half love, half envy, half camaraderie, half competition. Placed next to Friends, where 6 actors were paid equally and the spotlight was balanced, the resentment became clearer. The Living Single cast saw themselves as pioneers, yet the glory, the money, and the recognition went elsewhere. In that context, the fact that so much of the spotlight leaned toward Latifah touched an even deeper nerve. So behind the loud laughter of the audience, the set of Living Single sometimes felt like a chessboard of power. Queen Latifah was both the strongest piece and the one under constant scrutiny. Her co-stars were at once loyal teammates and quietly wishing for more light of their own. A sitcom family, but one that could not escape its silent cracks. And yet if the spotlight was the fracture, then the friendship between the women was the glue. Because behind the sharp banter, behind the tug-of-war for attention, they were still a strange kind of family bound together by invisible ties. Sisterhood love. In the middle of the storm. Kim Coles once revealed in an interview that their bond was so close even their menstrual cycles synced up. What sounded like a joke was actually true. They spent nearly every day together, from the makeup room to the soundstage, sharing even their most private moments. That synchrony wasn't just biological, it was spiritual. When one of them was down, the others could feel it immediately and found ways to lift her back up. During the days when Latifah was grieving her brother's death, Coles and Alexander would crack jokes or tell silly stories just to see her smile again. On set, every actor usually had a private dressing room. But Latifah and Kim Coles decided to combine theirs, turning it into a sister room. They laid down a rug, brought in a couch, added a small table, transforming it into a cozy retreat. Inside, they would gossip, smoke, listen to music, and share personal secrets. In the high-pressure world of Hollywood, that room became a safe oasis, where they could just be themselves without having to perform as stars. Erica Alexander revealed during a 2024 reunion a detail that left audiences shocked and laughing. "We used to strip down in front of each other and compare our boobs." It sounded bizarre, but in truth, it symbolized the absolute comfort they had with one another. They were no longer just co-workers. They were sisters willing to share even their most intimate moments. Queen Latifah recalled that after filming wrapped, the group would often head to the Sheraton Universal Hotel near the studio to get toasted, eating, drinking, and laughing the night away. For them, it wasn't just blowing off steam, it was strengthening their bond. The vibe was like a college hangout, except they were living inside a hit sitcom. Those nights cemented their sisterhood, turning the cast into a real family. It was this unity that helped them survive shocks like the fat joke incident in Crappy Birthday. Coles remembered feeling her heart shatter when she heard the line. But when she confided in Erica Alexander, the response wasn't indifference. It was a vow: "I will never read lines like that." And when Queen Latifah stood up to confront the issue head-on, the cast realized they weren't just playing a family on screen, they truly were one in real life. In an industry where women of color were so often pushed to the margins, their solidarity was their strongest weapon. They couldn't control how Fox promoted the show. They couldn't change the fact that Friends was showered with more attention. But they could control how they treated each other. And they chose to protect, to uplift, and to love. Living Single had its drama, its pressures, and its cracks over spotlight. But above it all, the sisterhood between Queen Latifah, Erica, Alexander Kim Coles, and Kim Fields was what kept the show alive for 5 seasons and 118 episodes. It proved that even in the harshest environment, real bonds could bloom. And it was that friendship, more than anything, that made Living Single legendary, not just another sitcom. Sisterhood kept the women afloat through the storms. But the Living Single set wasn't only about 4 women and their laughter. Beyond the dressing room doors was a complex production machine, where power money and egos clashed. And it was there that the most dangerous dramas began to take shape. Reunion memories and long-held truths. When Living Single ended in 1998, fans always wondered if the cast would ever sit down together and finally reveal what really happened behind the cameras. For years, the answer seemed to be no. The actors rarely spoke about the drama, and Queen Latifah, who carried the central role, remained especially silent. It wasn't until 2008 that Living Single had a special reunion. But the joyous atmosphere that day was clouded by one glaring absence: Queen Latifah did not show up. The official reason was scheduling conflicts, but for fans, her absence fueled endless speculation. Some believed she deliberately avoided it because of backstage tensions. Others thought she simply wanted to bury the episode she could never rewatch in the past. It took until 2024 for the moment fans had been waiting 26 years to finally happen. Queen Latifah, Erica Alexander, Kim Coles and Kim Fields appeared together on The Drew Barrymore Show. As they walked onto the stage, the audience erupted. Hugs, laughter, and behind-the-scenes stories filled the air, their eyes sparkling as they reminisced. Watching them that day, it seemed as though every wound had healed, and every conflict was just a shadow of the past. But the truth only came to light a year later, when the podcast Reliving Single launched. On August 6, 2025, Kim Coles and Erica Alexander, speaking in voices that were low and sometimes breaking with emotion, named what the world had never heard before: the episode Crappy Birthday. It was the episode where fat jokes were written straight into the script, the episode where Kim Coles felt humiliated, and the episode where Queen Latifah had to step in and shut it all down. Coles recalled it as if the pain was still fresh. Every season I'd get a call telling me I had to lose weight, and if I didn't, they threatened to write fat jokes. When she spoke about Crappy Birthday, her tone dropped to a whisper, as though she was leaning into the listener's ear. When that line was spoken, I felt my heart drop. I'm surprised we let it go through. Erica Alexander, always sharp and direct, didn't dance around the truth. Yes, that was definitely a fat joke. Her words sliced through the silence that had lasted for 3 decades. What shook fans the most was the way both women spoke of Queen Latifah. Even though she wasn't on the podcast, her name echoed again and again. Alexander remembered vividly Latifah was very clear. She said, "We're not going to be doing that." And after that day, the fat jokes disappeared. Coles added, "I told Erica they threatened me." And she said, "I won't read those lines." And Latifah shut it down right there on the spot. Only then did fans truly understand that without Latifah, Living Single might have turned into a stage for body shaming, where cheap laughs trampled on the actor's confidence. She was the one who stopped the show from sliding down that road. The reunion brought tears of joy, but the podcast brought different tears, bitter and choked. One was a glowing picture of memories. The other was the raw, uncomfortable truth. And together, they formed a powerful message. Living Single was never just a sitcom. It was also a testament to the fight of Black women in a Hollywood built on prejudice. The cast and their lives. Today, after the storm, each took their own path. 3 decades have passed since Living Single first aired. The cast, who once built the Brooklyn legend together, have now each gone their own way. They carry with them the spotlight, the scars, and the behind-the-scenes secrets as they step into their own journeys, where careers, fortunes, personal lives, and marriages became new stories, just as dramatic as the sitcom once was. Queen Latifah, the unbreakable. Queen Net, worth $70 million. If there is one person who rose the strongest after Living Single, it is none other than Queen Latifah. From pioneering rapper to sitcom actress, then leaping onto the big screen with Chicago 2002, earning an Oscar nomination and winning a Golden Globe, Latifah became Hollywood's multi-talented queen. Not only in acting, she also accumulated massive wealth through music endorsement deals, real estate, and producing. According to Celebrity Net Worth, Latifah currently holds a net worth of $70 million, making her one of the wealthiest among the cast. In her personal life, Latifah is private. But in 2021, she publicly confirmed her relationship with choreographer Ebony Nichols and revealed her happiness as a mother. From a young woman once weighed down by grief, Latifah has now become a symbol of success, wealth, and soft power. Erica Alexander, Maxine Shaw, and reinvention. Net worth $3 million, Erica Alexander once had audiences laughing out loud with her sharp and witty lawyer Maxine. After Living Single, her career path was not smooth, but she reinvented herself. She appeared in Get Out 2017 and expanded her influence as a producer, writer, and social activist. She co-founded Color Farm Media, a company dedicated to telling stories of the Black community making waves in the world of independent film. Her net worth is estimated at around $3 million, not comparable to Latifah, but proof of her creativity and persistence. In her personal life, Alexander was once married to screenwriter Tony Puryear. Today, she lives single, focusing on art and community work. Kim Coles, the innocent Sinclair and a journey of healing. Net worth $2 million Kim Coles was the lovable clown of living single. But after the series ended, she faced a harsh reality, fewer major roles, and a career in decline. Coles shifted into stand-up comedy writing and becoming a motivational speaker. She opened up about her years of depression, body image struggles, and how she learned to love herself again. Today, Coles no longer chases the spotlight. Instead, she chooses the path of healing for herself and for others. Her net worth is about $2 million, modest, but enough to live independently. After a few short marriages, Coles now lives alone, finding joy in inspiring the community. Kim Fields, the stylish regime, and family bliss. Net worth $6 million, unlike Coles. Kim Fields entered living single with fame already under her belt as a child star from The Facts of Life. After the sitcom, she not only continued acting, but also expanded into directing, working behind the scenes of hit shows like Tyler Perry's Meet the Browns and House of Pain. Fields surprised fans when she joined The Real Housewives of Atlanta, proving her versatility. With a decades-long career, she now has a net worth of $6 million. She lives in a mansion with her husband, actor Christopher Morgan, and their 2 sons. From the flashy and materialistic Regine Hunter Fields has become a woman of family stability and peace. John Henton, the kind-hearted Overton, and life after the crash. Net worth $500,000 John Henton brought to life. Overton Wakefield Jones, the kind and lovable handyman. But in 2000, tragedy struck when he suffered a horrific car accident that broke both legs, knocked out his teeth, and disfigured his face. Reconstructive surgery saved his life, but his career never fully recovered. Today, Henton occasionally performs stand-up comedy, but his income is unstable. His net worth is estimated at only $500,000, a small number compared to his glory days. He has chosen a quiet life, away from Hollywood content, with simplicity. T.C. Carson, the suave Kyle and the voice of resistance. Net worth $4 million T.C. Carson, who played Kyle Barker, left the show in season 5 after openly criticizing Fox for neglecting living single and favoring Friends. The price of resistance was a stalled television career, but Carson didn't vanish. He turned to jazz music and became highly successful in video game voice acting, most notably as the voice of Kratos in the early God of War series. Thanks to that, Carson maintained his standing in the entertainment industry, with a net worth of about $4 million. He lives a private, single life, choosing to dedicate himself to art rather than chasing fame. One family, many fates. One became a Hollywood millionaire and a symbol of success. One lives comfortably creative, but never reaching the top again. One fell into darkness only to become a healer. One was struck down by tragedy and embraced simplicity. And one dared to resist paying the price for his principles. They were once a sitcom family on screen. In real life, they remain a family, only now each carries a different fate, a different fortune, and a different lesson about the cost of fame. Do you remember this cast? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more of the best stories right here on our channel.